And he allows humans to be tested by evil. Keep in mind, he had the option to keep out the guy in the red Union suit for all of eternity. He didn't do that. He opened the gate to the Garden of Eden and invited Satan to come in, because he had a good purpose in allowing that to happen. Through the test, humanity could be delivered to a realm far superior to paradise. God's goal, he was not content just to have us live in paradise for all of eternity. He wanted to prepare us to receive a far better realm. And it's God himself who enters our created realm and conquers evil through his death on the cross. And it's not just 9 hours on the cross. Being God, he was able to suffer the penalty for all the sins of the entire human species, because he had access to suffering in dimensions far beyond those that we human beings experience. And then God brings his redemptive offer to all people groups. He's a gentleman. He doesn't force his offer on anyone. If you want it, you can have it, but you're not required to take it. And then God permanently removes evil from his creation and places redeemed humans in the new creation, where these redeemed humans will rule with Christ over the angels and the new creation. Very quick summary of our model on the problem of evil, but you'll find it laid out in considerable detail in a very easy to read book called Why the Universe is the Way It Is. Number 5, the faint sun paradox. Maybe you haven't heard that term, but as you look at the fossil record, we recognize it's not gradual and continuous like Charles Darwin presumed. It's filled with quantum jumps and interruptions. And the jumps and interruptions defy any naturalistic explanation. But they also mystify certain theists. Probably would be the most famous would be Ken Miller, a theistic evolutionist. And he had this to say in his book, Only a Theory: the designer is never satisfied, or perhaps can never get it quite right. He doesn't just design, he does it again and again, and his designs don't last. And whales are simply the most dramatic example of that. With whales, you get about 20 different, quote, transitional forms. But there's a reason for all those transitional forms. The bigger the species, the more complex it is, the faster it goes extinct. God likes whales, so he keeps making new whales to replace those that go extinct. On the evolutionary side, you anticipate the greatest number of transitions for the insects and the bacteria, not for birds and mammals, but we see it the other way around. Now, these frequent extinctions and creations are actually part of God's plan. This was stated 3,000 years ago in Psalm 104, where, speaking of life, it says, they die and return to the dust. When you send your spirit, they are created, and you renew the face of the earth. But it poses a question for all of us. Why would a loving God choose such a seemingly torturous and unending process of mass extinction and mass speciation? The answer is what we astronomers call the faint sun paradox. How the luminosity of the sun changes quite dramatically over its history, and light can only tolerate a very tiny change in the luminosity of the sun. The solution is to create just the right light on Earth at just the right time, so that light can perfectly compensate for the changes in the sun's brightness. So as the sun gets brighter and brighter, light can regulate the greenhouse gases in Earth's atmosphere. So as the sun gets brighter, the atmosphere gets less efficient in trapping heat. It can also work the other way around when the sun is getting brighter, or probably dimmer instead of brighter early in its history. And also by making sure you've got just the right light at just the right time and just the right quantity and diversity, that light can step by step prepare Earth and humans for human civilization by laying down the just right biodeposits in the just right locations. The city of Vancouver is 99% biodeposits. It took 3.8 billion years of life history to build up the biodeposits that we need to launch and sustain human civilization. Exactly how life pulls about the compensation for the faint sun paradox, life impacts the erosion rate, the carbon burial rate, the chemistry of the atmosphere, the soil and the crust, and also the reflectivity of the planet, how much light is reflected to outer space. Bottom line, this requires a supernatural mind. Someone who knows the future physics of the sun, earth, and moon must remove no longer compensating light and replace it with just right life forms at just right times, in just right amounts, and in just right locations. This can't be some kind of accidental random process. You've got to get just the right light there at just the right time. If you don't, the planet becomes permanently sterile. And the fact that we've had life on this planet for 3.8 billion years proves that there's this supernatural mind that's been regulating the removal of life at just right times and replacing it with these mass speciation events. The other evidence we see is every time we see a mass extinction event where 50 to 95% of all species of life are removed from the planet, within a short period of time, you see a mass speciation event. In 2 places, we can measure that the mass speciation comes less than 10,000 years after the mass extinction event. Now, that period of time was way too brief for even the most optimistic evolutionary models to explain how that life comes back and why it comes back in such radically different forms. And it's not just the small-bodied species of life, this even happens at the big-bodied level. Why is that important? Evolutionists have demonstrated that if you're talking a bird or a mammal or a reptile or amphibian, that the body size exceeds 3 kilograms, even under the most optimistic evolutionary principles, it will go extinct before it can change under any evolutionary conceivable mechanism. And so the dinosaurs, for example, with 3 mass extinction events and 3 mass speciation events, are evidence, again, that it takes supernatural intervention, not evolution, to explain this. You say, what about the Center for Inquiry? Well, I didn't mean to single out in particular. I was talking about organizations like that who say there is no God, we can explain everything through naturalistic means, and what the Bible and Christianity has got to say is simply a myth, it's not true. I had a chance to see this personally played out when I was at Caltech about 1.5 years ago. The Skeptic Society sponsored a 2-day conference in which they invited from all over the world leading atheistic scientists to speak all day, presenting their scientific evidences for why we don't need a God to explain everything we see in the universe and all of its life. At the very end of the conference, they invited me, as the lone Christian there, to come forward and do a debate with the atheist physicist Victor Stenger in front of the audience of 800 atheists from around the world. I took the debate challenge because I knew the audience would be well educated. Almost everybody in the audience had advanced degrees. Now, and this is kind of a brochure they put out for what they called the Great God Debate. Not that they were claiming that God was great, but they were saying the debate would be great about the existence of God. And if you want it, we actually have a DVD here that I think we're selling for just $5. You can buy it from the Skeptic Society for $25 US, but we're undercutting them a bit. And we give you the debate without any edits whatsoever. You get to see the entire debate and all the Q&A time, including the Q&A I had with all the atheist scientists that came forward. So it's available in the book deal. We may have run out, I don't know, but we had plenty of them. And this is kind of a shot of an audience there. After the debate was all over, many of these atheists began to engage me in conversation. The thing I observed all day long and the night before was just the high level of passion they had about the non-existence of God. And my response to them was, if you really truly believed that the God of the Bible doesn't exist, then you'd be treating that subject like you would the existence of the Tooth Fairy, or the Great Pumpkin, or Santa Claus, or the Easter Bunny. But the truth is, they have a tremendous, and moreover, I observe the passion is focused on the God of the Bible. You don't see that same level of passion, say, with Hinduism or Buddhism or Islam. It's all focused on the God of the Bible. And I said, what that really tells me, the passion that I see in all of you, and your intensity, is that you really do believe in God, but you don't like Him. Now, I got an interesting response from it. They said, well, that's not quite accurate. I mean, you've got a point, but the real truth is we don't like God's followers. And I said, well, there's some basis for that. I mean, after all, we are in rebellion against God. That's how we're born. People are sinners. We even see that behavior in the church of all places, right? I've been a pastor for 35 years. I know what it's like to be in a church full of sinners, and they know what it's like to see the sin in me. So naturally, you're going to find a lot of fault with God's followers. But why let people stand between you and the creator God of the universe, who has promised you an eternal reward in the new creation?